Hello everybody, Daniel Clemens, the HEMA Vtuber here, and today we are talking about tabletop role-playing games and whether they can be a good simulator of combat. I've been a fan of RPGs since Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was released, and I can say with confidence that the vast majority of role-playing games do their combat by figuring out a number that you need to roll and then rolling the dice in order to get that number. In classic Dungeons and Dragons, that's the D20. In Vampire the Masquerade, you end up rolling a handful of D10s. In Thirsty Sword Lesbians, you roll 2d6. And if your game of choice involves rolling 10 D100s, please leave. So within these frameworks, there have been occasional attempts to be more realistic than others. The way I've seen this most often is like how Mithras does it, where all your hit points are broken up between your limbs and torso and head. And all of those can be individually armored. And stuff like a destructive hit to the legs won't kill you, but it will leave you unable to walk. That sounds pretty realistic, but that's more so a simulation of damage rather than a simulation of combat. A game that I think shows an impressive combat situation is Dune: Adventures in the Imperium, shown here with the Emperor of the Known Galaxy. Now, the thing that interests me about Dune combat is it's supposed to be able to scale from an individual fight between two people to intergalactic warfare. And the way it does this is by establishing zones of control that you move in and out of, rather than a traditional grid or map. Now, during massive warfare, the zone of control could be entire countries or even entire planets. But when you shrink that down to just two people having a fight, it becomes this. Each person has a target area, which is representative of just their regular body, and two guards in front of that target area representing their left and right side. The goal of this combat is to, using Dune's movement system, move one of your weapons through the guard of the other person and into their target area, and that's when you roll your dice and hope that you get the right numbers. Now, the reason I say that this is a uniquely realistic way of conceptualizing combat is this right here. This is the divisions of your opponent as described by Joachim Meyer. Now, if you look at this, you can see that your opponent, and therefore you, are divided up into 4 quadrants. You've got your upper right, upper left, lower right, and lower left. Now, if you imagine somebody standing in front of you with this cross over them, and then you having a cross like that yourself, suddenly it starts looking a whole lot like this diagram here. Except instead of 2 guards, there's 4. Now let me show you how exactly that works. This is a photo of me using a gladius, which is roughly the same size that the Dune RPG gives for a Kindle, to protect my upper outside line. It's the outside line because I am a right-handed dominant, and the outside line is the line that is on your dominant side. If you were to strike me from my right side, your sword would be deflected by my sword right here. However, if you strike my left side, then I would not be able to stop that with my sword. I would need to move my sword over and thus defend my inside line. And this is, the extent of Dune's imagining of combat. You've got your right side, you've got your left side, and the goal is to make your opponent think you're attacking on the left side, but actually attack the right side, or vice versa. So, having successfully protected the upper half of our body, let's get some protection for the lower half of our body. In Scottish broadsword fencing, which is what I primarily practice, this is called an outside half hanger. This protects my outside line from any attacks rising up towards me. And this is an inside half hanger. This protects my inside line. And using those 4 guards, I am able to protect the 4 quadrants of my body. So once we're past their conceptualization of guards, I really like the fact that in order to injure your opponent, you need to take a turn to move your weapon from your zone of control into their zone of control. And that is a whole turn. And then you use another turn to move your weapon from their zone of control into their body. And I think that is a really good way of describing combat with the Holtzman energy shield that Dune is so well known for. You need to stop your knife so that you can enter afterwards. And when it comes to a specific rule in this game, they have a kind of movement which is called moving boldly. And what that lets you do is it lets you move another asset of your enemy. So say your enemy has their sword enter into your zone of control, and then you move boldly, so your sword pushes their sword out of your zone of control back into theirs. I think that is a very close approximation of describing a parry. And the last rule that I'd like to point out is that when you are unarmed, you don't just lose that hand. You are able to it specifically says grapple, unarmed strike, enter into wrestling. And that is exactly what you would do with the weapons that Dune describes. So, with knives, even something this big, you are able to reach past the knife, grab their wrist, and redirect their hand. And other than knives, Dune makes a lot of mention of rapiers, which are also a weapon that you would historically be able to use your hand to deflect. If you imagine the wax on, wax off of Karate Kid, you can absolutely use a wax off motion to deflect a rapier thrust. And that's it. That is all the reasons why I really like the combat system in Dune and the slight variations I would make to it. Thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any other RPGs that you think, hey, this is such a unique system, he needs to look at it and talk about it, drop it in a comment. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.